Joining me on the show now, it is Adam from the Howlers. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. So yeah, you guys are relatively like new to me. Like I hadn't really heard of you until probably only a couple of months ago. I was sent your single of yours, and really like your vibe. But obviously, I think this you're kind of at that moment where a lot of people are discovering you. Um,
Hmm.
so how would you sort of like if you had to sell yourself to someone and be like, oh well, test to sell if you are a fan of XYZ, or if you like this style of thing, what how would you say sell yourself to someone like that?
Um, we kind of always say that, like, as a band, we've kind of skated under the radar a little bit just because we don't follow the easy path to what we're doing. We don't fit into any predetermined mold or genre um, that you'd necessarily expect. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think if you like things that are a little bit different and not different in a weird way, like we're not doing anything different. You know what I mean? I'm not like, you know, I'm not playing the flute or anything like that whilst like playing a guitar solo. But like it's if you just like things that are more authentic and aren't afraid to be outside the box a little bit, which is both one of the biggest things we have going for us, but also a drawback. Um, that's kind of where we sit. It's like we don't do politics in our music. We don't do um, you know anything other than try and offer people a escape from the world that we live in, which can sometimes be a quite hard place to live in. That's who we are. So I'm not really good at describing who we are or what we do, but I just kind of we are who we are, and that's it. When we get together, that's how we sound, and we're just three idiots that someone somehow stumbled into writing music together. But it's fun, it's enjoyable.
And I like that, and I think that comes across. I mean, like when there's a few singles that I've heard, there is straight away there's a kind of, there's a bit of indie in there, there's a bit of rock, there's a bit of it sounds like there's a bit of country in there as well. Like it kind of just a mishmash of everything. But I like the fact that, yeah, like you said, it kind of is. It's different. It's your vibe. It's kind of what you want to do. So I love the
Yeah,
authenticity in that.
yeah. We always say that as a band, if you had to define us or how we are musically, is a three-way Venn diagram. Um, is that there's things that we individually like and nobody else likes. There's things that we cross over with each other with, and there's also that little sweet spot in the middle, which is where we cross over, and that's where we meet, and we bring all of our influences together. And so that's kind of how we've ended up sounding how we do. Like we don't sound like any other band out there, which is you know, kind of a pain when you're talking to your agent. You're like, "Can we go support this band?" And you're like, "No," because you're not even anywhere near them. But they're a band that we idolize and look up to. So, um, yeah, it's just who we are. Like we don't try to sound like anything else. We don't get in a room and say, "You know what? Let's try and sound like Oasis or like Monkeys or whoever it may be." It's just not who we. It's not who we are as people. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of proud of that fact that we do our own thing.
Yeah. So for you, when did you first start getting into music?
From quite a young age, I think. I was actually talking about this today. Um, that I think like music for me was always an escapism aspect from like my upbringing and stuff like that. So from a very young age, I was kind of behind closed doors, listening to music in the mirror and prancing around like a loon. Um, but in terms of like playing it, I was kind of a little bit later to the game and self-taught and kind of got into it like that way, like because I have dyslexia and I have like um on the spectrum autistically as well. And so when I was trying to be taught guitar, it the teacher I had at the time, I remember quite vividly said to me, "Give up, you're never going to get it." And I was like, that's I will persevere, sort of thing, on my own. Um, but yeah, I kind of started discovering music, going looking backwards and looking at the 60s and 70s and 80s and finding artists that I was hearing on telly in adverts or hearing on the radio and thinking, oh, I love this band. And that's kind of how I got into it. And now it's all consuming. Now it's my life, unfortunately.
I mean, it's a good thing to be consumed by.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's a difficult career path to follow, but you have to have a passion for it, and it was something that you either live and breathe or you don't. And yeah, like music is such a broad spectrum of stuff. I love so many different genres and so many different things that are so weird, but um, but yeah, I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change that at all. But yeah, that's how I got into music, really.
So was the passion first to play guitar, or was it to be singing? Because they're both very hard things to do. I always find it incredible when people are like, oh yeah, I sing and play guitar. I just do drums and that's hard enough. Like,
Yeah,
do they go, yeah, I'm gonna pick being the front man. Oh, I'm also gonna play guitar. Like that's just it's like I would pile everything on all the pressure.
yeah. I mean, like, I remember being told by an old friend who's actually in another in another band now, that he was singing and playing guitar, and I was like, I was just trying to play guitar at the time, and I was like, how do you sing, man, and do it? And then he was like, it's very difficult, but you get there with practice, and that's all it took. But I never set out to be a front man. I never set out um to have that spotlight on me in that regard. It was just we wanted to start a band, and someone has to do it. Um, and I kind of just went, well, I'll do it if no one else wants to do it. I think I'm the only one that could hold a tune, and yeah, here we are. But sometimes I find it difficult because I'm quite like I like my interactions with people to be more personable than like abroad, sort of in front of a crowd. Um, but yeah, I kind of get on stage and I am that character of that front man while I'm on stage, and so it's a nice like release for me. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not the best guitarist. I'm not the best singer, but I somehow wangle it. I guess is the word for it. But yeah,
A
that's my
solid,
answer.
a solid songwriter though, and I think like that always is one of the big things for me. You don't always necessarily have to be the greatest singer. Like you don't have to be a Whitney Houston. If you've got those songs behind you, that's what counts.
Yeah, I think like with songwriting, it is very much of just the more you get out, they're not always going to be like golden. You know what I mean? They're not always going to be winners or hits or anything like that. And believe me, I've written some absolutely atrocious little songs that you sometimes break out in rehearsals when everyone's like someone's going to have a cigarette or whatever, and you're in the room alone. You do it for fun or something like that. But um, all things that are like you enjoy playing, but you're like, I can. There's no way that I can ever play this or release this as the band because it is like comedy. Um, but yeah, it's either in you or not to be a songwriter. And in our band, I'm kind of the only one who has that tapped in. So yeah, yeah. As I said, they're not all good songs that I've written, and some of them have been absolutely horrible. I look back on them now and think, Christ, what was I doing? But it's a learning curve, like anything. It's you develop it and you learn, you pick up things, and that's what it should be. Um, but yeah, but I appreciate the compliment there. I don't think anyone's ever really said I'm a good songwriter before because I'm my own worst critic. So yes, thank you very much for that.
That's all right. So who like in terms of songwriting, who are some of the people that you look up to, thinking, yeah, now they are quality songwriters. Like every time it's solid.
It's a good question that. Um, I mean, I take influence from such a broad spectrum of artists, and I don't view songwriters or songs as that song's great and that song's not or anything. I view it in like segments. So I'm like that bridge is great, or that verse is great, or that lyric is great. And if I hear things, I tend to write them down. I use them as influence down the line, wherever I rewrite things or I take something musically and I try and make it my own. I'm a big believer in something that we've always coined from day one is that you can't reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already there. All you can do is just put more spokes on it. And that's kind of how we approach or how I approach songwriting is that if I hear something that's great or it always inspires something that is your own. And that's kind of how I look at it. But there's songwriters and artists like Dan Auerbach or Richard Swift that I think are massively underrated songwriters. Um, and well, they're not really because they're especially Dan Auerbach, like he's got a huge career. But yeah, if you look into not their mainstream stuff and the things they've written on solo records or on side projects, that's the stuff that interests me because that's the music that they felt connected with them more than their passion project. You know what I mean? So um, yeah, I don't know really. Good question. I'd have to muse on that. To muse.
That's fine. So obviously, the big thing for you guys is debut album. It's actually not
Mm.
that long now, is it? Pretty much a month away, and then we've
No,
got
it's sat there on my shelf right now. We picked it up yesterday.
all ready to go.
Yeah, well, yeah, we had to go to we went to the warehouse yesterday, and I picked up my copies, and stupidly I didn't have a bag with me, so when I left and to go get the tube, it was chucking it down. So my copy is now sat on the shelf here, water damaged and battered and a little bit ripped, and kind of a metaphor for how we're feeling as a band right now. But yeah, it looks good. It looks good, and we're kind of excited. We're so excited it's almost here.
Yeah, 17th of May. What you've got to lose to win it all. It's a debut album. I mean, it's a pretty scary time, isn't it? Because we've obviously had the singles out. Um, the reception I feel has been quite really good for the singles. So has that kind of relieved the pressure a little bit of the debut coming out because people have been enjoying the singles so far. So you kind of know is that what we're expecting to get with the album? Those singles.
Um, yeah and no. Like like the album itself is like something that we are immensely proud of, and it sounds like there's no other record out there right now that it sounds like. There's just not, and like, and that's not just me saying, you know, we are unique and we're doing our thing. It's because most bands releasing albums now are releasing albums of songs that they've drip fed for a very long time, and it's their first body of work, and because the world we live in is how we release music. Whereas we approached it differently, and we went into the studio and we recorded 17 songs, and we couldn't whittle it down to 10 or 12. We've got a 15 track debut album, and like 8 or 9 of them are songs that will be brand new to people that wouldn't have been released. Like there's a few things on my back catalogue, and there's a few things that we've released during this campaign. But yeah, the pressure is massively on us because we are independent, so every penny it comes from our pockets, and we're in, you know, it's not, I'm not ashamed to say, well, that we're in masses of debt to do this album, and we carry that, and we have the pressure of that on our shoulders. But so we have to make every penny that we spend count. So there's things that we in this campaign that we started off doing that we immediately scrapped because we were like, we're wasting money there, just let's not do it. But ultimately it comes down to the songs, and it comes down to people connecting with this record, and we've set this record up um is this like a cinematic like soundtrack, and the opening thing you hear on the record is mariachi style trumpets. That's the very first thing you hear. So um and then that theme, it carries through the record, so there's lots of songs with that on it, and lots of keys and lots of strings, and orchestral elements, and we kind of wanted to develop our sound into this place where people hear this record and they kind of go, oh, they're an independent band. Like, what's going on? Like, why is, how have they done this without the, you know, the backing of this and that? And like, it's something that we want people to connect with, and understand how proud we are of it. Um, that's why it's already set up on my shelf, like before it's released. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where we opened the record yesterday, opened the boxes, and we looked at it and kind of all went, like, it's here. You know what I mean? And it was yeah, it was a weird moment. I can't really describe that moment. A lot of artists will blag it and go, "Oh, it was amazing," but no, it was a weird moment. Um, but yeah, it's something we're super proud of. We're looking forward to people hearing it and seeing what they
Yeah.
think. Really.
I mean, because I can imagine it being just because it's a strange because albums and somewhere some of this stuff has taken years to get, especially for a debut album, it's taken years to get to this point. Like you said, loads of money and all that, which people don't ever see behind the scenes, and then for that to all culminate in like that one, like a physical thing that you're like, this is it. This is what these years of our life have
Mm.
been about. It's like this one piece of like solid piece I have in my hand right now. As a yeah,
Yeah, it's a strange one. As I said, like the paraphernalia of a record, holding a record, or holding a CD, or holding a cassette, is that tangible thing. It's your love, your passion, like that you're able to hold, and you can see everything on that record, every little detail that you've put into the design of the record, and how you've structured the soundscape in it, and it then everyone does the very next thing people do is they kind of go, right, let's check the spelling, because like there's going to be something that's spelt here that we've missed. Um, but yeah, it's a weird one. I keep looking at it now during this interview, and I'm just kind of like looking at the imagery on it and thinking like all the time and effort and the pain and anguish that has gone into that record just for it to be sat there, um, water damaged and battered as it is. Did an interview earlier today actually, where someone asked me a very similar question, and I kind of said, looking at it now, it kind of feels like that old dog that's a little bit ill, and like you love, even though it's a little bit mangy and warty and it's covered in ticks or whatever, but it is who we are, and like that every song on that has such a deep meaning to this band that yeah, getting to hold it for the first time was just as I said, a very weird time.
Yeah. So with the album, what is the oldest song on it? It's like the song that came about with the Howlers for the first. Like, is it a couple of years ago? Or was it recently? How old is the
I
album
mean,
itself?
we recorded the album in October 2022.
Huh?
So yeah, like a year and a half ahead of its release. Um, and so all those songs were kind of worked on in 2022, and um, the idea was to release it in 2023, but due to our touring schedule and we worked on it, and it was produced by two of the guys in Black Honey, who we ended up going on tour with, and they had an album out. So when you look at the timescale of things, it's like by the time that we'd finished touring together and they had their album out, it's like, okay, now it's June, July 2023. We're in festival season, and it's like, right, nobody in the industry is going to want to hear it until the end of the year. So we were kind of like in a weird spot where last year was our busiest year gigging, but in terms of releasing music, we only released one song but we were sat on 17. So um, yeah, it's strange. So they all kind of are old in their conception, but in terms of their how when people are going to hear them, they're brand new. So for us, like we go into rehearsals and we've been playing these songs for 2 years. You know what I mean? And you kind of go like know that one like the back of our hand, but when you go and play it live and someone doesn't know it, you have to always remember that to them is the first time they're hearing it, whereas we've heard it thousands of times. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's some really good stuff. I think the oldest thing actually on the record is we wanted the record to represent our journey as a band from day dot to now, and that includes the 6 months we were a band prior to the pandemic, or 8 months prior to the pandemic we were a band. The majority of our career being in lockdown, and then the 2 years or so that we've spent out of that. Um, and it's kind of been this like weird thing to look back on that and kind of see how far we've come in 2 years, because you don't really count those pandemic years
No.
because nothing really. So we wanted to take elements of who we were, reimagine them, and put them on there. So there is a instrumental section on it which pays homage to a track that we released in November 2019, that we reimagined, and people always ask for it live, but we never play it live because it's actually an awful song, but the music of it's actually quite good. So we were like, well, we want to play them that bit of the song, but the rest of the song's rubbish. So how do we work that in? So we kind of worked it into the middle of the record. So that's quite nice. So that's like 4 years old, but yeah, the majority of it's new stuff, really.
Yeah. What track are you particularly looking forward to people hearing for the first time? Like, what's the one you go, this is the one I really want people to like get excited about?
There's a couple, well, all of it, like you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
there's a there's a track. The second track on the album is actually the next single that's going to be out on April 24th or 25th. It's a track called "I Need Your Love," which is it's the track that kind of started this album. How it ended up sounding, because it was a song I never wanted on the album. It was a song I wrote to get rid of, as we were talking earlier about songs you write and you just and it was just a song that I wrote, and I ended up writing like this kind of indie pop rock, and it's not even indie pop. It's not even the way to describe it. A bit funk, a bit rock, a bit pop but then it's like got horns on it and violin, and it became the strongest song on the album. And it was a song that I never wanted recorded. I actually, in pre-production, I got out of my chair and went, no, we're not recording that. And I got outvoted. And I'm kind of glad we did, because in the studio I was like, actually, this slaps. And it kind of shaped how the rest of the record sounded from there, because we were like taking elements that we applied onto that track to make me happy with it. And then I became so happy with it. I was like, this song needs trumpet, this song needs violin. And it became this thing where we turned into this. We were already a cinematic band as it was, but we turned into this massively cinematic band. So there's that one. But there's a song that there's in the middle of the record that purposely ends side A of the vinyl, which is kind of how we structured the record. Which is an acoustic song, a very stripped back acoustic song called Wanting, Waiting, Wishing, which also wasn't meant to be recorded. We didn't go into the session to record that. We were doing something in the studio, and Chris, who was producing it, he was putting something on the grid on the computer, and it was me and him in the control room, and I had an acoustic guitar, and I was just I don't think I'd even done anything yet. It was Tom was still doing drums, and I just started playing it just to myself. I wrote it like a week before, and he turned around in his chair and went, "What's that? Whose song's that?" I went, "It's one of mine." And he was just like, "Right, we're recording that. Put it on the wall." And yeah, it became the last thing we did, and it is the only song on the record that I can confidently say 100%. I will nail to the same standard as the record every time we play it. It's one of those songs I just sit down and go, "That was banging." Did that in one take. And yeah, I'm very proud of that song. It's a very personal song. It's quite an intimate song to sing, but it's yeah, it was just the stuff that happens in the studio is the stuff that ends up being good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to people hearing that as well.
That's exciting. So obviously part of the album release, you are doing some installs, and I think
Mm.
you're coming down to Pine Vinyl in Pompey, aren't you?
Yeah, we're doing Vanillo or Vinilo or however
Definitely.
you say it in the day on release day actually in Southampton, and then in the evening we're doing an outstore with Pine Vinyl. We're playing at Staggeringly Good doing an outstore for Pine Vinyl. So which was at my behest because I used to work there. So I was just like I used to work here and now I want to go back and do this um because they let me go like just before the pandemic. So I was like, I got a bit of a bonnet about it. So I was well, the first time I had my opportunity to go back there and kind of rub it in their faces, like in a very polite way, while I was also making the money, which is where it was a very weird way to kind of say, ha ha. So yeah, we're doing it there, which I'm looking forward to. And I'm Portsmouth born and bred, so it's hometown for me. So it kind of felt fitting to come here and spend that with my family, really, which is very gracious of the boys to allow that to be the case.
I mean, that's amazing because I'm in Fareham, so voice
Mm.
is in Southampton, but I kind of grew up more in Portsmouth. Um,
The never zone, as I call it, that's where you live.
yeah,
It's
the
the
midway between the
area with
two.
yeah, it's kind of like the sidecar between two motorbikes, but no one really knows what it's adjoined to. You know what I mean? It's that's kind of when everyone says to me like, "Oh, I'm from Fareham," I'm like, "Oh yeah, you live in like the dark zone." It's like just like you like it's like Mordor between like a couple of different. Um, but yeah, man, like yeah, like the show. I'm looking forward to those installs and things like that because we actually were working it out the other day. All the acoustic stuff we're doing for most of them, and then Pine Vinyl and Rough Trade East in London are the only two we're doing full band. So um, yeah, we're looking forward to doing that. It was kind of a bit of a weird one. It was yesterday actually. We sat down for the first time and went, probably should work this set out, boys, and it kind of flowed. But yeah, we're looking forward to that. I've known Steve at Pine Vinyl a very long time, so it's nice to finally do something together as well.
Yeah, I've been to quite a few in stores there. They're always quite cool, and some of the outstores
Yeah,
as well. They're quite.
we tend to whenever we're gigging, um, if it's on the south coast, we tend to, because I live in Portsmouth now, so we tend to crash at mine if it's like Brighton or Southampton or Portsmouth, and usually the next morning if it's like a weekend, we if there's a in-store thing there, it's acoustic or whatever, we always pop in. So it's kind of nice to be like in the middle of a tour and go watch another artist, because you don't really get to do that like when you're touring, because often the support bands that you're with, they're great, or you're supporting, you can't, and you watch other acts, but the people have got to eat, man. So that's the only time to eat is when someone else is playing. So yeah, it's nice to do that. But yeah, it's a good little space. I love it in there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously being from Pompey, I'm assuming one of your favorite venues on the south is the Wedge because it's just a fine venue.
Yeah, it's one of the places that we played the most here. Well, we actually no, that's a lie. When we came out of the pandemic, and just prior to the pandemic, when we first started, we hammered Portsmouth, like hammered it, and we were like, we started the band in London, and we'd done, I think it was like 2 or 3 shows in London, but we'd done like 11 in Portsmouth, and we were like, hang on, how's this happened? But yeah, the Wedge is one of my favourite venues, just hands down, because it's one of those venues that is a proper venue. Like you walk in and it smells of bleach because they're trying to scrub the toilets clean of all the sins that have happened in there. It never gets out, and it's like bit like the cheap beer and bleach, and a venue that's painted floor to ceiling black. Like you can't, like, that is just all I think of when I think of a music venue. And Jeff, who owns it and runs it,
He's a
he's a good
legend.
guy. He's really like been a um if for this city particularly, he's kind of been the guy that's kind of tried to fly the flag for getting new and breaking bands in the Wedge. Um, so got a lot of time for him and stuff like that. And but yeah, the Wedge is awesome. It's awesome to play as well. It sounds great in there. We played the main stage a few times, and um, yeah, it's a lot of people like, it's got the rock star toilet as well backstage, which is a big thing. It's like the toilet seats are gold glittery toilet seats, so uh, bit of a laugh when you're back there. But it always makes me laugh whenever you go to the toilet back there and you're like, yeah, star treatment here. Uh, but yeah.
Because I love the fact that I think, especially like where we are, we're kind of spoiled because we've got the Wedge and we've also got the Joiners in Southampton, and both of them, I was like, they are key venues, and I just think they are some of the best in the country, and we've got like literally on our doorstep. It's just awesome.
Mm. Yeah, I think it was a shame when the Pyramid Centre
Oh,
shut down, because
yeah.
that was, that's actually my gym now. So it's weird that I go and do a run in there, but they've still got the lighting rig up, which makes me laugh. So like, every time I'm in there, there's like some guy like trying to lift a weight that's far too heavy for him, and he's underneath the spotlights and the moving heads that I've seen so many bands play underneath, and I kind of think about that when I'm in there. But yeah, the Joiners is also great. Like Pat, who runs that, is he's a good guy, and also um, yeah, it's a weird place here, the Solent area, because a lot, especially Portsmouth always falls on the list of often missed cities. But the music, if you get you either get a Portsmouth fan base or a Southampton fan base. You don't really get both, um, and that's because it runs deep in these two cities, the
Yeah.
hatred for each other. So if you're a band, you either gig one or the other, and it doesn't really fly the other way. So if you've been gigging in Southampton, you go, let's book a Portsmouth show. It's like, nah, mate, just like no one's going to turn up. Don't bother. Um, but they're two great venues. They're good touring venues as well, which is a major plus. They sound good, they look good, and the team there is hard working. So
Yeah.
yeah, great venues.
So yeah, so obviously the big thing, we got the album that's coming out on the 17th of May. So what you've got to lose to win it all. And we've also got the in-store as well, so people can come to Southampton or Portsmouth, which is fantastic. Yeah, what's the rest of the year looking like for you guys?
Well, it's weird because we started this year and we need to be busy. We need to be busy because we've got an album campaign. And actually, we've done 2 gigs the first half of this year, and like, so we're actually going into an album campaign being the the quietest we've ever been, which has been a struggle because like week by week we're banging our heads on the wall, going, "No, we need to be out here and doing this," and it's just been a struggle. But that's just how things go sometimes. But then from May onwards, it becomes busy for us like across the summer, doing little spot shows here and there, a couple of little mini festivals and things. Which is another thing. We've gone into an album campaign without having ever played a like a major festival or anything like that, which still boggles people because when people see us live, they're like, "You should need to be on the circuit." And we're like, "Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Like, you know what I mean? I can want for something, but it's not going to happen." But at the end of the year, we've got like a big UK tour through September and October, and then we're in Europe in November. So yeah, it gets busy towards it, the second half of the year gets really busy for us. So it's I'm looking forward to that. I think we're doing a Southampton date, but it's part of a festival, so we're headlining that festival. So we're doing that as part of that tour. I tried to get a Portsmouth date, but I was outvoted by everybody. And yeah, so it's busy, man. We're looking forward to doing our first European headline tour, and we're playing a lot of venues on this tour that we would have played like a couple of years ago because we kind of looked at it and went, we could play this venue, which is bigger, but like, what does a debut album mean to us? Because the people that buy people's ticket buying habits have changed. So the people that buy tickets from the bat, the people that buy them early and tend to sell out smaller venues are your true fans, your proper fans that want that ticket. And that's what this record means to us. We don't want to pay a slightly bigger room and be it slower on ticket sales until the final week where everything jumps, because that's not your true fans. We want it to be that experience for the true fans. So yeah, we're playing some smaller venues, but we're looking forward to it because it means that we know they're going to be sold out, and we know that the people in that room are going to be the people that we want to talk to after that gig, and we want to. Not that we don't. Nah, it sounds horrible. Not that we don't want to talk to everybody. Like, I'm going to take that back. Scratch
I
that.
know, I know what you mean though.
But you know what I mean? It's like the people that have been with you since day dot. Like it's so amazing when you see people there. As the rooms have got bigger, and front row is always that person that you have seen since you were playing to 5 people in that city. And even in this town, when I moved back, getting recognised by people that had been around and stuff like that. And it was a couple of months ago. I was in the Dockyard Club for something, and a fan of the band walked in, and he was just like, "I haven't seen you in ages. Like, how are you?" And like all this, and I spent an hour chatting with him and his missus because I hadn't seen him in a long time. And that is the interaction that we kind of want from this tour: is that people get to see how much it means to us instead of being a reclusive artist. But yeah, everybody's valued is the end of that. Like, everybody, it means the world to us. Anybody coming to our shows. So yeah, we just want to offer that experience.
No, amazing. Thank you so much, Adam, for your time. It's been awesome chat. Hopefully, I'm going to make it down for the Pine of Arnold outstore. So I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to the album coming out. Yeah, and just thank you, and just the best of luck with it.
Thank you very much, man. It's been a pleasure speaking to you as always, and I've really enjoyed it. So it's always nice when you get to chat to someone and they understand where you're from and things like that. So yeah, all the best, man, and hopefully we'll see you on the 17th on release day.
On release day, even better. Yeah. Right, have a good one. Cheers, Adam. Bye.
Cheers, dude.